Good morning, everybody, and I'm glad to see almost 200 people at the webinar for now. And meet Herbert Puchta. I guess you can see him in another square screen. Hello, Herbert.
Hello, and welcome everybody to the session.
Yes, welcome to Cambridge Back to School online experience. This is an event we organized together with the linguist company Cambridge University Press and Cambridge Assessment English. So to check what sessions you can join from Cambridge Assessment English, please check their website and check their Facebook page. Also, from Cambridge University Press, we are going to have a series from Herbert Puchta, which is teaching young learners to teaching writing to young learners, and also a session on teenagers and how to use texts with them. But today we are going to talk about young learners, and I've prepared some news from Cambridge University Press and the Linguist Company. We've been working together in Ukraine for 10 years, and for this time we've done a lot of things for you, for New Ukrainian School particularly. So what we've done for New Ukrainian School project and what we are still doing, we have published Quick Minds for Ukraine, the adaptation for Ukraine, and Herbert Puchta, who is with us today, is the author of Quick Minds for Ukraine, is going to tell you how to teach writing with this course. And what we've done from our side is first of all, I want to tell you that we've done more video lessons. You've seen video lessons for grade 1 and grade 2, and now there are more for grade 3, and we are definitely going to continue in case there are any troubles with teaching kids offline. So we are trying to help you as much as we can do and provide all the methodological support and support for your students as well. Also, what we've done in terms of components, there is Pupils book, which you all receive from the libraries. You can also, you should use Pupils book with activity book, and teachers book are teachers books are now going to be online, and you will be able to receive them on Publishing Linguist UA website. I will show you the link and how to do it later. There is also Teacher's Resource Book with additional components, downloadable audio at Publishing Linguist UA. There is online interactive application, posters for revision and for grammar in grade 3. There are also super alphabet books, super dictionary books, super puzzles book, which you can check at Publishing Linguist UA website. And we've prepared the new editions for super portfolio and super reading book, specifically for New Ukrainian School needs. Quick Minds for Ukraine, the third level, you can see all the components here, and this is where you can get all the audios. If you click on the list of audio tracks there, you will be able either to download or to listen to them online. And there is also Teacher's book. This is how you get it. There is oh yeah, here is an arrow. So you can find it here, and when you click here, you will have the access to such a questionnaire which you fill out and receive the teacher's book for free. You can either read it online, or if you need, you can print it. And what's new in activity books for Quick Minds 3 for Ukraine is the reading section at the end of the book, which you were all asking us for. More reading, please. So here it is, 9 sections for reading in activity book for the 3rd grade. There are also super reading book and super portfolio book. In super reading book, you will find more texts, more training for reading, more practice for reading for your students in the 2nd or even 3rd grade. And in terms of supporting every teacher campaign, we've created different ways to support you. So these are video lessons for all the 3 levels. I will provide you with more Cambridge corners starting from September. We already had 22 webinars with over 20,000 participants in a year, and we will continue working for you in this way. There are quick notes, some small activities that you can have with your students in the classroom, and we are going to create such ones for online teaching. There are articles on how to work with Quick Minds, and also the updated platform for teachers. I will tell you more later about it. Here it is. So for now, over 300 teachers received their 5-hour certificates at New Ukrainian School English.com UA platform, which was designed together with the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine, British Council, Cambridge University Press, and Cambridge Assessment English. And this is the part of your professional development. So if you haven't seen this platform yet, please do. There is a module that all of you have finished in year 2018, and this year there is one more module for working in the 3rd and 4th grade. So please check this platform. There is not only training, but also loads of useful materials and mapping of all these useful materials to the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine curriculum for New Ukrainian School. And also there is Be Ready for Anything with Cambridge campaign. And according to this campaign, if you use Cambridge University Press materials, you can ask me for more help, and to find out what's there in this teacher spec, please contact me in case you use Cambridge University Press materials. Where you can find more information and more support is cambridge.org, Publishing Linguist UA, and for example, you can find how to teach remotely with Cambridge materials. This is Kids Box for young learners, Superminds, and we've done our guide for Quick Minds for Ukraine, which you can find at Publishing Linguist UA website. For more information, you can contact me and to find out what's available for remote learning, and that's a lot from Cambridge University Press and from Linguist Company. Also, if you are interested in more training from the Linguist Training Center, you can contact our academic director or go to our Facebook, Instagram page, YouTube channel, and to find out what you can learn, which webinars and live sessions you can join this year. And the last thing I want to say from my side is that you will receive certificates automatically from this platform within a few days after the webinar. Please check junk mailbox as well, because it might get there. And if you don't get your certificate, text me directly. We will figure this out. And be careful if you are using the Ukrnet email, there might be some inconveniences with receiving the certificates. So if you were registering from Ukronet website, please check if you receive everything. If you don't, text me as well. And we've included some useful links for you and the recording in the thank you letter, which you will receive after this webinar. Enjoy the webinar and meet Herbert Buchtel, the author of Quick Minds, Super Minds, Think, Empower, loads of photocopyable and methodological materials for Cambridge University Press. Wonderful teacher trainer, and the best speaker I've ever seen, I think, and actually great teacher of mine, because all the time I watch you speaking about teaching. I think I get the most inspired ever. So meet Herbert Buchtel. I'm sharing the screen with you.
Okay, let us just try if this works. Give me a moment. Okay, here we go. Okay. Tatiana, is this coming up? Can you see my screen here?
Yes, I can see your screen. You can start the, okay, you've started the broadcasting, so I will switch off for a while, and in case you need assistance with questions and answers, I am here, and I will just tell you that for now we have 400 participants who are listening to you. I will be answering more questions, and here we go.
Okay, thanks so much, Tatiana. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. I'm delighted that so many of you have actually shown up. I'd also like to wish you belatedly a happy Independence Day. You may be wondering where I am. I would normally be standing in front of you wearing suit and tie, and now you can see me in a t-shirt in this strange environment. This is actually the last day of my holiday. I'm in a camper van near Reykjavik in Iceland, and I've been here for 2 weeks, and it's been a fantastic holiday. I'd just like to show you 2 photos I've taken recently. The first one is a photo of a puffin, one of the birds that nest on some of the rocks of Iceland. A fascinating and beautiful bird. And I went out on this boat together with my family, and we saw this beautiful puffin. I think it's the last one we saw, because what they do at the end of the summer, and it is the end of the summer here, definitely, the puffins go back out, and they stay out on the sea with their newborn chicks for about 4 years before they come back onto the island. So most puffins have already left, and this, I think, was one of the last few puffins that are still here on Iceland at the moment. And if you're lucky, and we were very lucky, you can also occasionally see whales. So this is a photo I took of the tail, the dorsal fin of the humpback whale. So quite impressive, an animal, as you know, a mammal of about 16 or 17 meters length. A fascinating experience. Well, I'm not here to give you a biology lesson. I just thought I'd share a couple of photos with you. We are now going to be talking about the development of writing skills with young learners. And it's time to reflect for a moment. So what I would like to ask you is to take a minute and think back to the days when you personally learned to read and write. And I'd like to ask you, when you think of those days, what memories, what associations, what thoughts, and what feelings does that bring back to you? Unfortunately, I can't see the chat box, but I'd like to ask you to just write down a few words in the chat box. And as they're coming in, Tetiana will read them out aloud so I know what you are actually writing. Okay? So, what memories, what associations, what thoughts, what feelings do you have when you think back to the days when you started to read and write?
Okay, I will come here. There is one. It was complicated. It was not interesting. Someone says, Irina says it was nice. Some
Okay,
people are still joining and saying hello to us.
lovely.
Victoria says it was rather difficult and fingers were not obeying. Hard
Yes.
work, but funny. Oh, it reminds Yaroslava her granny that taught her reading and at school, and reading was not interesting.
Okay.
Irina felt awkward. Tanya felt satisfied. Ludmila had to struggle a lot. Writing was painful for her little hands, says Tatiana.
Mm.
Difficult, anxious, stressful. Olena
Okay.
really loved it.
Okay, great. We have found we found somebody who actually loved it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tatiana. I think we could go on, of course, but it is a key point, isn't it, that you are absolutely right that for quite a few children, learning to read and to write is a very complex and sometimes complicated cognitive, but also when it comes to the development of writing skills, a complex and complicated manual activity. It is somehow associated with work and hard work, and we need to keep this in mind that it's an extremely important process for our children, for the learners we teach, and hopefully, given the methodology we have and we have developed as also course book writers, will help you to make it a more pleasant experience for your students. So your students won't feel like this little gentleman in the photo here. But it's definitely something we need to think about very, very carefully. It's a skill that requires a lot of thinking from our side. I have gapped this quotation from Anna Maria Pinter's 2015 book on teaching young learners, where she stresses that, among other things, teaching reading and writing successfully is a question of the right timing. And I think before we look into this and before we look at this quotation, we really need to consider the fact that we cannot see the teaching of writing independently from the teaching of reading. Both have to be seen and treated in many ways together, because they are two processes that actually complement one another. So maybe you have started looking at this gapped text here and wondering what Anna Maria Pinter is actually saying about the right timing in connection with the reading and writing process. And well, what she's actually saying is that it would be controversial to introduce reading and writing in a second language to children who are not yet literate in their first language. And I hope that we all agree, trying to teach reading and writing before they're well literate in their own language would be a very painful and frustrating experience. However, she says, once literacy in one language is established, children often expect to learn to read and write, I'd like to add, in the new language too. So the right timing depends on the process of having successfully acquired reading and writing skills in their mother tongue. Then it's the time to properly develop reading and writing skills in the new language. Okay, I like this quotation: those who write are writers, and those who wait are waiters. Well, we don't want to wait for too long. So when your students are now in year 3, this really is the time when we can start developing reading and writing skills in a more systematic and serious fashion. Of course, learners have already learned to read in English to a certain extent. I was delighted to hear that you now have super reading books with Quick Minds for Ukraine. I think this is excellent, because when it comes to the development of writing skills, getting students to read is something that is very, very important. And we have already said this, and you have said this, but I'd like to stress it again. Learning to read and write requires the development of some complex skills sets. It's not just a mechanical thing, although part of it, as we know, is mechanical, and we're gonna look into that too. Here's another quotation that comes from Lynn Cameron's book on teaching young learners, CUP publication from 2001. What she's saying is, I've wanted to emphasize that without informed and focused attention to the mechanics of reading and writing, children may be denied access to literacy in their first and foreign languages. Sorry for the typo in languages. And that a great deal of focused work is needed to help children make a good start in learning to read and write. And we know that, don't we? We really need to give them systematic training in learning to read and to write. Otherwise, it'll be a very, very frustrating experience, and we certainly don't want our students, our young learners, to be frustrated when they learn to read and write. This is an activity from Quick Minds 3, and somehow it's a metaphor, I think, of what the reading and writing process is all about. They are just basically asked to look at the coded message here and write down the message that comes from Lucy and Ben's book. Lucy and Ben are the protagonists of the storyline in Quick Minds 3. So children look at this code, and they are writing the message. They're writing out Ben and Lucy's message here. It's a question of looking carefully. It's a question of thinking. It's a question of comparing. It's a question of making cognitive connections. It's a question of decoding this message, but it's also, of course, a mechanical skill question. Students need to read and write in a way that is legible to themselves if they want to decode the message here. And this is what reading and writing is all about in its basic forms. It requires complicated cognitive and also manual processes. So a quick look at what happens when we read. You've already taught your young learners how to read in English, but I think it's an interesting process that neurobiologists have shed light on only in recent years, really. So what happens when we read? The pages I'm using now, they actually from an article on how reading works in the brain in one of the mainstream US magazines. I think it was the Time magazine. So what they actually say here is that on the left-hand side of the brain, in the left brain hemisphere, there are three, and you can see them there, they're lit up. There are three areas that are somehow instrumental and active in the reading process. Number one, as you can see here, is the so-called phoneme producer, or the left inferior frontal gyrus. Then number two is the word analyzer, and number three is the so-called automatic detector. Let's look at this in a bit more detail, and let's also discuss what can go wrong if children don't learn to read well. So the left interior frontal gyrus, this section of the brain, helps a person vocalize sounds silently or when reading out aloud. It also starts to analyze phonemes, the smallest sounds that make up words. Cat, for example, as you know, contains three phonemes: a k, an a, and a t. And this section is particularly active in the brains of beginning readers. So this is the part of the brain that is responsible for the child to remember what each of the letters actually sounds like when pronounced, the analysis of phonemes, and it helps students in a pretty complex process initially to put these phonemes together, to sound out what the word actually means. The second processor is the so-called word analyzer, or the left parieto-temporal area. This section of the brain does a more complete analysis of the written words. What actually happens is, so this is when readers have gone beyond the initial stages of the reading process. So they look at a word, and in the child's brain, the words get pulled apart into their constituent syllables. So children do not, as in the initial phase of the reading process, read letter for letter anymore in this stage and try to sound out the word cat by connecting the phonemes. What happens here is that the syllables are actually pulled apart, and phonemes and letters are linked to the appropriate sounds. So this is a process that already goes a little faster. And then we have the so-called automatic detector, which is the part of the brain that you and I use when we read. We don't normally look at a word letter by letter, or we don't pull apart words into their syllables. What we do is we look at a word and we read and understand a word holistically. So the left occipitotemporal area in the brain, whose job it is to automate the process of recognizing words. The more this automatic detector is activated, the better it functions. So this makes the reading process more fluent and more efficient. Skilled readers, as we know, do not read letter for letter, they do not read word for word, they breeze through print at a fast speed, actually. Now, what can go wrong? Children with dyslexia suffer from the fact that their assembly line, so to speak, going from word to word and reading automatically, breaks down. It comes to frequent standstills, and responsible for that is a neurological glitch that prevents their brain from easily gaining access to both the word analyzer and the automatic detector. And this is why dyslexics appear to compensate. I've done something dyslexic here. You can see, I'm sorry for the typo. So they appear to compensate by leaning more heavily on the phoneme producer. So they find it difficult to go into an automatic kind of reading process, and they stick to painfully and slowly sounding out word for word by sounding out letter for letter. And they also recruit areas from the right side of the brain that process visual clues. That's why they often come up with words that are not really there on paper, but they somehow imagine things in the right part of their brain. So let's summarize what we've said so far. I'm sorry, I just need to put something on. It's getting a little chilly here in my camper van here in Iceland. So let's quickly consider a number of key points that we've mentioned so far. So what we need to consider is, first of all, the learner's age, the level of their reading and writing capability in their own language, the intensity of the English language teaching program. So of course, how well a child will be able to develop their reading and writing skills depends on the number of hours we have available. The more hours we have available, the better we can help them to develop their reading and writing skills. And then, of course, the exposure to English, the more they listen to English, the more they read, the better for the development of their reading skills and finally and eventually also their writing skills. Their level of comprehension is something we need to consider, and their L1, their mother tongue, the reading capabilities are important too. Now, a few basic capabilities that we need to develop through reading. Reading is not just about decoding the meaning of a word. We have to see reading in context. So the good reader, as they are going through a text, do not just decode single words. They are engaged in a process of predicting what comes next. So this requires a certain familiarity with chunks of language, which is one of the reasons why it's important for children to have a good amount of input already. Let's just have a look at an activity, a little activity that I just wrote up yesterday. It's not a very meaningful text, but just to show you what we can do. We can have a short text and start either writing it onto the board or use like a PowerPoint presentation in like my presentation here in this case, and give them word for word or chunk for chunk, and ask them to guess what's going to come next. Okay, so can you please type into the chat box what you think the next word or the next two words will be? And Tatiana, can I ask you again to read out what the colleagues are saying? Tatiana? Hello?
Yes, I'm here. There is a little delay.
Okay,
So
good.
we've got, of course, we've got most of a time. There is also
Okay, just a
some.
moment, just a moment, just a moment. So once upon a time, what's the next word? What do you think is the next word? Please type the next word.
So this
Tatiana?
is the right one. Okay, the next one. There was.
Okay, there was perfect. How do you know? Of course, we do know because we have a bank of chunks at the back of our mind. And while we read, we think of the next word. What is the next word, please?
Someone
Tatiana?
writes a beautiful girl, a child.
Ah, okay. Well, we have a king here. Okay. What's
Oh,
the next
someone has
word?
a king. Okay,
Okay. What's the next word? Once upon a time, there was a king. I'll help
okay.
you. And
Who was
no, doesn't work. Once upon a time, there was a king and
a queen?
perfect. How do you know? Okay. And here is they loved. What's the next word? They loved.
They loved each other.
Oh, fantastic. How do you know? They loved each other and dearly and lived happily ever after. Okay. As I said, not the greatest story in the world, but it shows, I think, brilliantly this kind of process that is so important in the reading activation of the brain, a process of anticipation of whatever comes next. We notice patterns. We can develop that through rhymes, for example. So here we have a little rhyme. Clarissa Whiskers is a cat. She eats a lot and gets quite, and you know what the word is, fat. One day she starts to swim and run, and now she's fit and has more fun. There you go. Okay, so this helps children also with the development of their reading skills. Rhymes are very important. Now, and then of course, deducing meaning based on pictures, on headings, on their world knowledge, which helps them look out for what is called content schemata, and knowledge of text type, of course, which is about being able to guess or deduce from so-called format schemata. So when we look, and then of course, skimming and scanning, and through reading games like speed scanning. So when we look at a double page, and this is actually one double page from Quick Minds. It's a learn and think page. Now, even for a learner who is not very good at reading yet, we need to train them to first of all have a look at clues on this page or on this spread, on this double page, that might help them to understand what the text is all about. Okay, so they use their world knowledge. They have been ill. They see this child here having her temperature taken. So it says in bed with fever. They see the child with the thermometer. So they begin to deduce, to guess, to anticipate what this text here is all about. In this particular case, since the first short text here is about a virus, they've seen pictures, unfortunately, of the virus that is pestering the world at the moment. So, you know, all these content and format schemata, they help students to understand more about what they're reading and what they're writing. Spelling is, of course, extremely important. I'd like to stress something. You know, many teachers carry out dictation activities with their young learners, which is great. But I'd like to point out one thing, and that is, let's avoid auditory dictations. So when we dictate a word, when we dictate a sentence, when we dictate a text, and we have insecure spellers in our classrooms, they will listen carefully and then they will write down what they actually hear, which in a language like English, as we know, is a catastrophe. It would be different if they were learning Spanish, because Spanish is a language that far more depends on a strict relationship between the spoken word and the phonemes, the auditory representation. So what I'd like to suggest is that you start giving them visual dictations by just, you know, having flashcards, and you hold up the card. You say to your learners, look at this card, remember it, don't write yet. And once I'm taking the card down, now you write it. Show them the card again so they can check what they have written. Do the same with word groups, do the same with sentences. Write sentences on strips of paper, hold up the sentence, show the sentence to the class, tell them, wait a moment, don't write yet, just read and try to remember it. Focus your attention, try to remember it. Give them a few seconds, then you take the strip of paper off and ask them to write it down. Then you show the strip of paper with the sentence again and ask them to check. This helps them to develop a habit of trying to remember words and sentences visually before they actually write them down, and not rely on the auditory representation of a word. Involve them in reassembling language. So when they're familiar with a text, again, a typo here, sorry, like you can see that my mind is on holiday still. When working with familiar texts, for example, the little rhyme I showed you previously, or a simple dialogue, take it apart, show the learners the constituents of this, or the components, and then ask them to put them together again. Okay, Clarissa Whiskers is a cat. So Clarissa Whiskers is a cat. She eats a lot and gets quite fat. One day she starts to swim and run, and now she's fit and has more fun. So learners need to look, they need to copy, they need to remember. This is another very, very important activity. We need to go, as I've suggested already, from word level to sentence level to paragraph level if we want to develop their writing skills efficiently. And you can, of course, trust that with Quick Minds, you have a course book that does all that in a very systematic form, so that you don't need to do this yourself all the time. You have a range of activities, a range of exercises that help your students to go from the word to the sentence and finally the paragraph level. Of course, what is important also is that children learn to write things that are meaningful for themselves. So when you look at number 2 here, we have this little chart. What can they do? Write sentences with can and can't. And we can see Tim and Kara. Tim can jump. He can't play basketball, and he can swim. Kara can't jump. She can play basketball. She can swim. So first of all, on a word level, they complete these sentences by filling in the right words, and finally they write sentences about themselves. The next step, so to speak, and this is something that is frequently done in Quick Minds 3, is about what I call creative copying. In other words, here we have a little text. It says, read about Tom's house. Is it the same as your house? Talk to a friend. I live in a nice house. There are 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, a dining room, a living room, and a hall. There isn't a cellar. I like my house. So once they have read this, once they have understood this, they can have a little chat with a partner to talk about their house or their flat, and then they can write their own text, and they can do that by copying parts of this text, but at the same time using language from this text in a creative way. So they're writing about their own house or their own flat using words or chunks of language from this model text. So they can say, I live in a small house, or I live in a nice flat. There are, don't know, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a living room. There is a cellar. My house is nice, etc., etc., etc. So there is a lot of support that learners get, support that helps them to write something meaningful. And if you want to make this a very successful activity, I'll give you another tip. Ask them to read this text, then go to the board and say to them, dictate this text back to me. So a learner will say, I live in a nice house. So as they are saying this to you, you write down a skeleton text. So you only write the first letter of each of the words in this sentence. I live in a nice house. So I hope you can see this here. You write this up on the board. Then the next learner says there are 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, etc., etc. And as you're listening, you're writing down only the first letter of each word. Then you ask them to try and reconstruct the text together with you. I live in a nice house. And you carry on like that. And then you begin to delete from the board 1 letter from each line. And you ask them to try and read this sentence from memory. So they would say, I live in a nice house, etc., etc., etc. Then you delete another letter in each line until in the end there is nothing, there are no letters on the board anymore, but your students are actually able to read, quote unquote, this text from memory. This helps them a lot with creative copying. This helps them a lot to create their own texts. Again, creative copying in a little create that activity. Students listen to the audio and they imagine a haunted house. They draw a picture. They think about the questions here in number 2. Is the haunted house big or small? What color is it? How many bedrooms are there? Are there any ghosts, rats, or spiders in the room? And then they have a little model text, which again they change by looking at it and by using language from the text. So they write their own text. Again, if you want, you can use the skeleton text technique to help them reconstruct the text, which will help them with their own writing. Proper writing training, and I'm coming to the end of this, helps children to gradually develop an active understanding, of course, of who they're writing to, the addressee or the addressees, the purpose of their writing, and the topic, the content, and the structure of their writing. This is an activity, this is from page 24 of Quick Minds 3. It's the birthday unit, and as you can see here, we have a model text, read the birthday invitation, then answer the questions. Dear Nathan, please come to my party on Friday at 3 o'clock. It's in our garden. Can you bring your football? See you then. Care. And the questions, they help raise learners' awareness of the key points that I mentioned previously. Who is this for? So the addressee, what day is it on and where is it? Important content and structural questions, because when I write an invitation and I forget to write on what day my birthday party is, or if I forget to write where it takes place, then the addressee will not find this a very useful invitation. So number 2, read and think. Say what's missing in each birthday invitation. And we have, for example, text A, come to my birthday party on Sunday. You can come with your sister. Can you bring your football? The birthday party is in our garden at 4 o'clock. See you on Sunday, Tim. So everything is there, but what's not there is the addressee. It doesn't say dear Tom or dear Tatiana or dear Sandra or what have you. So children are reading this, they're trying to find what's missing, and by doing so, they're becoming more and more aware of the important elements of such an invitation. So when they now write their own email, they will know what they have to include. I'm coming to the end of this. There's a short question time then afterwards, but I'd like to stress one more thing. As CJ Cherry says here, it's perfectly okay to write garbage as long as you edit brilliantly. So writing is a process. We need to help our children to write by writing again and again. First of all, we will ask them to write a first draft. We will help them to correct this first draft, and we'll get them to redraft their text, to write it again. And later, maybe at the end of the year, we will not always correct everything. Sometimes we'll just underline something and children have to think and redraft their text. So we need to help them to become editors of their own writing. Writing is a process and it's not just about products. And then Jane Hyatt Yolen says it's something a writer herself. She says, exercise the writing muscle every day, even if it's only a letter, notes, a title list, a character sketch, a journal entry. This is not about children in their third year of learning English. This is about being a writer. So she says, even if you are a writer, you need to write all the time. Writers, she says, are like dancers, like athletes. Without that exercise, the muscles seize up. So we have to practice writing if we want to become good writers. And that is, of course, something to take home with. We have to engage our learners in practicing their writing. Otherwise, they will not become good writers. Now, of course, when they are in their third year of learning English, there are still so many things that need to be developed. Their listening skills, their speaking skills, their reading skills, most importantly, of course, and gradually also their writing skills. So we won't put our main focus on the development of their writing skills, but we will take it seriously and we will help them to develop their writing skills systematically. Okay, and it's now over to Tatiana, who I'm sure has actually looked at the chat box and followed what you have said in the chat box. Tatiana, over to you. I'm delighted to see we have over 400 people now. Tatiana, over to you.
Yeah, there was a question. Thank you very much, first of all. As usual, this is amazing and so many insights, and I'm glad that we are trying to do the way you're teaching. And yeah, there was a question from three of the teachers, the same question. How about dictations? When you dictate a Ukrainian word, like translating dictations for young learners, what do you think about this kind of activity?
Translating dictations?
Yeah, when a teacher dictates a word in Ukrainian and students have to write it in English.
Okay. Well, how shall I put it? It's a technique that is often used in primary schools by quite a number of teachers. It's not a technique that makes me extremely happy, to be perfectly honest with you. The problem is if we practice vocabulary by dictating a word in the mother tongue and students having to write down the English word, then students are getting into a process whereby they start thinking L1, L2, L1, L2, L1, L2. So the danger of such a technique is that students actually, before they say something, will always go back to their mother tongue and think of the mother tongue word first before they actually will say it in English. And that's something we want to avoid. So one way out would be to have drawings. So you show a picture of a house rather than saying the Ukrainian word for house. You show the picture and students write down the word. So a picture dictation, so to speak, that would be much more efficient than a mother tongue L1, L2 dictation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. That's a great thing to do, I guess, with more visual experience. Okay. is it good to teach reading and writing at the very first grade?
It's less of a problem than people used to think in the old days. In the old days, there were methodologists who even said, you know, you have to develop listening and speaking skills for 1 or 2 years before you can even show learners a written word. Of course, it'll be important to make sure that students have a good command of words first, that they can listen to and understand before we gradually show them the written words. A lot will depend on how many hours a week a child has. So if you know, you have very little time available, then maybe in the first year you will not be doing a lot of writing, actually. Maybe a bit of tracing, you know, um, um, uh, but it depends on many factors, actually. Also on how keen your students are to start reading and writing. Some kids these days, they want to, they ask their teacher to be taught how to read and write in English. So there is no a simple yes/no answer to this question.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. And there is a question. Have you been teaching kids whose language is not English and not that doesn't look like English?
Okay, so you're talking about the alphabet, okay?
I
So
think so, yeah.
the development of non Roman script based literacy. I have not personally. I have, of course, worked with teachers in many countries around the world, where the alphabet the children are learning in their own language is non-Roman based. So it's something that I am well familiar with. Is there a specific question the colleague would like to ask
I
beyond
think I think
yes, no?
there is a request maybe to tell some story about you teaching kids who don't speak any English.
Okay, well, who don't speak any English?
Yeah, well, who are
Okay,
not native
well,
speakers.
I'm yeah. I mean, I regularly teach non-native speakers of English. I'm a non-native speaker of English myself. I'm currently teaching is actually a funny story, I think. I'm currently teaching. Not currently. I'll start again in 2 weeks' time when school starts in Austria. I've been teaching a group of primary kids for 3 years now. And the story is that my own grandson attends this class, and we live in a very rural area of southeast Austria, you know, and there is not a lot of um, uh, teaching of English in the local primary school happening there. So I have actually asked the principal there if I can teach the children. I'm teaching them three lessons a week, and you know, whenever I'm there, I go and teach these kids. So yes, I am an experienced teacher of children who are non-native speakers of English, and it's great fun. I love that.
Yeah, nice. Um, and well, maybe you can share some advice on what is the best way to teach spelling.
Well, I've already mentioned that. Make sure your students remember what words look like. And if children have problems with spelling, they often have problems because they write down what they hear. Now, if you know, we all know how to spell the word temperature. It's easy. But if I write the word temperature in the way I hear it, I will have serious problems. So our students need to learn to remember what words look like in order to be able to spell them correctly. So give them lots of visual input dictations, as I've said. Show them a word, write down the word temperature in this case. Just a second. I'm sorry, my spelling is not very nice. Hold it up, ask them to concentrate on the word, ask them to remember it, give them a few seconds, then take it down and say, okay, now you write it down. And then you show them the word again so they can check. This is the best training of teaching them how to spell in English. If there are words that they find particularly difficult, use color, underline certain letters or trace them in color, and make them aware of these specific parts of words. That also helps learners to remember what words are spelled like.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to answer some of the questions at the same time, typing those. Okay, so I think, is it necessary to teach handwriting letters or in blocks at the beginning? How to do it? You know, we have this cursive, beautiful writing and just in blocks. So what is the best way to combine? Or
look, there is no right or wrong here. Basically, if that is something that is in line with your tradition, there is a lot of good reasons why we should use block letters. That's fine. Or you want to use capital and lowercase letters. There's no, you know, right or wrong. You do what you are sort of happiest with. I don't know of any study that shows that one of these methods has a huge advantage over the other. In the end, what children have to learn is what letters look like and how one writes letters. And they have to learn to, first of all, make the combination between the abstract sign, the letter, and the phoneme, the sound, and then gradually they have to learn how to mechanically write the letters also, and those are the two sort of principal processes: a cognitive memory process and a mechanical process. So, you know, if you think you want to teach block letters first, go ahead. If you want to teach lowercase and uppercase letters at the same time, go ahead and do it.
yeah, and actually, this is the recommendation of the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine to first teach block letters, and we have the super alphabet book where we teach how to do it properly. And yeah, what is the main thing is to combine those letters.
Yes, that's a good point, Tatiana. Thanks for mentioning the super alphabet book, because maybe the colleague who asked whether I've actually taught children how to read and write, whose mother tongue alphabet is not Roman letter based. This is something that is important, that for quick minds we have the super alphabets book. So that helps learners, of course, to acquire the writing of the Roman script.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think we will finish with the questions. I will just answer a few questions that I know the answers for.
Okay.
So yes, you will all have the recording of this webinar in the thank you letter, and if Herbert allows us, we will publish this webinar on our YouTube channel. Thank you. And you will be able to watch it there. The link will be to our Facebook page, Cambridge University Press ELT Ukraine. And if you have any...
Tatiana, can I just say one thing, because I need to get to the airport, so I need to say bye to everybody. It's been my pleasure working with you. I hope this has been useful. I'd just like to finish by wishing you a great start to the new school year, and stay healthy, stay safe. Hope to see you again one day in person in your beautiful country. I wish you all the very best, and thank you very much, Tatiana, also for being such a great host. And bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, Herbert. And I just want to tell you that I've been reading out a lot of questions, but there are so many thank yous for this webinar and words that it was extremely useful. And thanks a million. It was fascinating, marvelous, and always a pleasure to attend your webinars, Herbert. Thank you very much. Have a safe flight and safe in general, and hope to well, we will see you soon in 2 days. So see you.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, yeah, sure, of course. Yes.
See you soon,
Okay.
and thank you very much for this.
Okay. Thanks very much. Bye-bye. Can you
Bye.
actually kick me out, or do I just now just close it here?
You just close it and that's it.
Yeah. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, thank you everybody, and you have a link to the session that will happen at 12 o'clock today from Cambridge Assessment English. Thank you very much for listening to this session, and see you tomorrow at Anne Robinson's talk, Make Language Real. See you soon and have a great day today.